Let me ask you something. Have you ever had a bad day go bad before the day even really started? Not because something catastrophic happened, not because your whole life fell apart, but because one little thing hit the wrong place. You woke up tired. You checked your phone and saw something you didn't want to see. Somebody said something to you sideways. Your money looks tighter than you expected. The traffic was worse than usual. The kids acting up. Your spouse felt distant. Your boss came to you with some pressure. Your body felt heavy. Your mind felt clouded. And before you knew it, the whole day had a tone to it. You were irritated. You were short. You were distracted. You were tired of everybody. You were tired of yourself. And the dangerous part is this: the day did not just become bad around you, it became bad inside you. That is what I want to talk about today: the anatomy of a bad day. Because a bad day is rarely just one big thing. Most of the time, a bad day is a chain reaction of decisions, and it starts as a moment, then it becomes a mood, then it becomes a mindset, then it becomes a reaction. And if we are not careful, it becomes a huge mistake. Not because the moment had that much power, but because we handed the moment the authority to lead us.
Little ones, my real ones, for people trying to feel some, for all the bridges burned along the way and how we still run and still swim, even though we underwater, never hit the kill switch and overcome like everything we limits, walking past have been the thinnest, almost lost myself within it, all the roads that end the quickest means you didn't take it farther, I gotta go harder, in case of my departure.
I'll always try to get it right, I'm working hard to leave a legacy behind. Yeah, I'll always fight for what is mine, I'm working hard to leave a legacy behind.
Welcome to Grind Hard, Hustle Smart with me, Charles Johnson. And today we're talking about the anatomy of a bad decision. And more importantly, what we can do before one bad moment turns into a bad decision. So let's just hop right into it. See, bad days rarely introduce themselves honestly. They do not always walk in the room and say, hey, I'm here to test you today. I'm here to test your patience today. They do not always announce, hey, guess what? Today, I'm going to expose all your triggers. They do not always say, hey, you know what? Today, I'm going to show you where you are still tired, where you are still healing, and where your peace is still negotiable. Nah, man, that's not what they do. A bad day usually comes disguised as something ordinary: a late start, a missed call, a bill, a delay, a weird tone in somebody's voice, a plan that falls apart, a conversation that does not sit right with you, a feeling you can't explain. And then the mind starts moving, the emotions start rising, the body starts reacting. You get that physiological reaction. The spirit starts feeling heavy. And now the day is not just happening, now the day is leading. And that is the issue. Because the question is not whether bad days will come, because they will. The question is, who gets to lead you when the bad day turns bad? Does frustration lead you? Does fear lead you? Does pride lead you? Does exhaustion lead you? Does rejection lead you? Does anger lead you? Does your past lead you? Or does truth lead you? Today is where self-leadership comes into play, because a bad day does not remove your responsibility. It reveals your operating system. A bad day always has a trigger. Something always happens. You wake up late. You get bad news. You feel ignored. Somebody disrespects you. You make a mistake. You get rejected. Your plans change. Your money gets funny. Your body feels off. Your expectations run headfirst into reality. And now here is the thing. The trigger may look small to somebody else, but that does not mean it is small to you. And we need to be honest about that. Because sometimes people will tell you it is not that serious, but they do not know what that thing has actually touched. That delay may have touched your fear. That rejection may have touched your insecurities. That criticism may have touched your pride. That silence may have touched your abandonment wounds. That pressure may have touched your exhaustion. That disappointment may have touched that place in you that is tired of hoping. So sometimes the thing bothering you is not just the thing that happened. It is what the thing that happened has awakened. And that is why you have to slow down and ask yourself, what actually happened? And what did this touch in me? Because if you do not understand the trigger, you will end up fighting the wrong battles. You will think you're mad about the text message, but you're really mad because you feel dismissed. You think you are mad about traffic, but really you are overwhelmed because you already feel behind in life in general. You will think you're mad at one person, but really they touched a wound that started somewhere else down the road. That is the anatomy of a bad day. It is not always the size of the event. Sometimes it is the depth of the wound it hits. So let's talk about the story you tell yourself. See, after the trigger comes the interpretation. This is where the mind starts talking to you. And let me tell you something, man. Your mind can become a dangerous place when it is tired, when it is offended, when it is afraid or disappointed. Because now you start creating a story. Hey, man, they don't respect me. Man, nobody cares. Nothing ever works out for me. I am always the one carrying everything. This is why I do not trust people. Man, I should just stop trying. Yo, God must not hear me. Man, I'm failing. I'm behind. I cannot catch a break for nothing, man. And this is where a bad day becomes dangerous. Because the event may have lasted 5 whole minutes, but the story you attach to it can control the rest of your day. One rude comment becomes nobody values me. One closed door becomes I will never get ahead. One mistake becomes I am an absolute failure. One stressful morning becomes this whole day is ruined. One conflict becomes I cannot trust anyone. And once your mind starts accepting the wrong story, your emotions start following instructions from a lie. This is why you have to interrupt the narrative early. Because if you do not, the bad day starts preaching to you. And I need you to listen to me clearly. A bad day is a terrible preacher, terrible pastor. A bad day will preach hopelessness. A bad day will preach offense. A bad day will preach revenge. A bad day will preach isolation. A bad day will preach compromise. A bad day will tell you to go back to habits God already delivered you from. A bad day will tell you to say what you cannot take back. A bad day will tell you to quit something you were called to finish. So you have to interrupt the sermon that the bad day is giving early. You have to say something like this. This happened, but this is not my whole life. This hurt me, but this does not get to define me. This disappointed me, but it does not get to lead me. I am tired, man, but I am not abandoned. I am frustrated, but I am not powerless. I am having a bad day, but I do not have to become a bad version of myself. That is self-leadership. That is self-control. That is self-discipline. Now, we cannot talk about a bad day or bad days without talking about the body, the physical, because sometimes what we call a bad attitude is actually a tired body screaming for attention, screaming for rest. You cannot ignore this part. Lack of sleep changes your patience. Hunger changes your mood. Stress changes your tone. Pain changes your capacity. Dehydration changes your focus. Exhaustion changes your ability to think clearly. There are times when you are not weak. You are just simply worn out. There are times when you are not losing your mind. You are simply overloaded. There are times when you do not need a full life diagnosis. You just need some rest. You need food. You need water. You need some stillness. Go to a quiet place. You need some sunlight. Get outside. You need some movement. Go do something active. You need a moment to breathe before you respond. Think before you speak. Now, I am not saying every problem is physical, because some things are absolutely spiritual. Some things are emotional. Some things are relational. Some things require prayer, counseling, accountability, repentance, and the making of hard decisions. But I am saying your body is part of your leadership system. And if you do not lead your body will eventually start leading your emotions. And when your emotions are being led by exhaustion, you will say things, assume things, and decide things from depletion instead of wisdom. You ever notice how everything feels worse when you're tired? The same problem that looked manageable at 10 a.m. feels impossible at midnight. The same conversation that could have been handled calmly becomes explosive when you have not eaten. The same disappointment that you could have prayed through becomes a spiral when your body is running on fumes. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is stop making major conclusions while your body is running on E. Go eat something, drink some water, take a walk, take a breath, take a pause. Because you may not need to quit your life. You may need to regulate your body. And here's another truth. Let's talk about it. A bad day is often built on a chain of things. It's not built on one day. Sometimes the day goes bad because you have been carrying things you never completely processed. You kept showing up. You kept pushing through. You kept telling everybody, hey, man, I'm good. I'm okay. I'm fine. You kept smiling. You kept serving. You kept working. You kept being the responsible one. You kept swallowing frustration. You kept ignoring the warning signs. You kept moving because stopping felt irresponsible. Then one small thing happened. And it looked like you overreacted. But maybe you did not just react in that moment to that moment. Maybe you reacted to everything that moment represented. This is why self-awareness matters. Because without self-awareness, you will punish the present for pain that started somewhere else. You will snap at someone who touched only a bruise they did not create. You will make a permanent decision based on temporary emotional storms. You will call it honesty when it is really overflow. And overflow is not always truth. Sometimes overflow is unprocessed pain looking for somewhere to land. That is why we have to stop glorifying, I'm just keeping it real. When sometimes what we really mean is, I never learned how to process pain before it comes out of my mouth. Everybody who hears your frustration does not deserve to become the target of your exhaustion. Everybody who touches a wound did not create the wound. Everybody around you should not have to pay for what you have refused to process. And that may sound hard, but it is absolutely from love, because healing does not begin with blaming everybody else for your reaction. Healing begins when you can say, this hurt me. This has triggered me. This exposed something in me. But I'm still responsible for what I do next. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is maturity. Now let's talk about the spiritual side of this. Because not every inconvenience is an attack. Not every delay is demonic. Not every hard moment is spiritual warfare. Sometimes life is just life. Sometimes people are just people. Sometimes consequences are just consequences. Sometimes poor planning is poor planning. But we would be foolish to ignore that bad days often become opportunities for temptation. The temptation to quit, the temptation to speak recklessly, the temptation to go back to old habits, the temptation to isolate, the temptation to numb yourself, the temptation to stop praying, the temptation to believe God has forgotten you somehow, the temptation to make your feelings your final authority. And this is serious, man, because a bad day can become a doorway. And the question is this: what are you allowing through that doorway? What are you allowing to cross the thresholds of your heart, of your soul, of your mind? Are you allowing bitterness through it? Are you allowing despair through it? Are you allowing compromise through it? Are you allowing shame through it? Are you allowing old patterns through it? Or are you allowing truth to interrupt that downward spiral, that catastrophic thinking? See, the enemy does not always need to destroy your whole life in this one dramatic moment. Sometimes all he needs is to get you to mishandle one bad day badly enough that it creates consequences you now have to carry until tomorrow. One message, one relapse, one outburst, one reckless decision, one unnecessary argument, one I do not care anymore type of moments, one return to something God had already pulled you out of. This is why scripture tells us to be sober-minded and watchful, not paranoid, but watchful. Because your bad day may be real, your pain may be real, your fatigue may be real, but so still is your responsibility. You can be tired without surrendering. You can be upset without sinning. You can be disappointed without becoming destructive. You can be hurt, without handing the steering wheel to your wounds. So what do we do about this, man? I know that's what a lot of people are saying. Charles, what do we do about this? Because the goal is not to pretend the day is not bad. That is not wise. That's not wise for me to tell you. That's not wisdom. That is denial, avoidance. The goal is to stop the bad day from becoming a bad decision, a bad distraction, a bad conversation, or a bad pattern. Here are a few ways to interrupt the spiral. Number one, name what is actually happening. Do not say I'm having a bad day. I want you to be specific. Say, I'm tired, man. I feel rejected. I feel overwhelmed. I am disappointed. I feel unseen. I am angry. I am anxious. Man, I'm just carrying way too much. Because what you refuse to name, you will usually allow to rule. And the second thing is this: separate the event from the story. Ask yourself, what happened? And what am I telling myself about what happened? And these are not always the same thing. The event may be real, but the story may be exaggerated by fear, pride, pain, or exhaustion. And the third thing is this: check your body before you judge the entirety of your life. Have you slept? Have you eaten? Have you had water? Have you moved your body? Have you been active? Have you stepped away from the noise? Have you gone to the quiet place? Have you taken one quiet breath before responding, thinking before you speak? Sometimes you are not broken, you are depleted. And number four is delay unnecessary reactions. Not every thing needs an immediate response. Not every emotion needs a microphone. Not every frustration needs a conversation. Not every thought deserves agreement. Not every bad moment deserves your access or deserves access to your mouth. Give yourself enough time to respond from wisdom instead of injury. And the fifth thing is this: return to truth. Not the truth you feel is real, but the truth that steadies you when your feelings are loud. The truth that God is still present. The truth that this one day is not the entirety or the whole of your life. That this moment is not your entire identity. This moment of frustration does not have to become your future. You can be honest without being destructive. You can be tired without being a quitter. The truth is, you can be upset without sinning. You can be disappointed without surrendering your discipline. A bad day may explain your struggle, but it does not excuse your surrender to your worst notions. And now here's a mirror moment for you. The question is not whether you will have a bad day or days, because you will. The question is, who gets to lead when the day turns bad? Does frustration lead you? Does fear lead you? Does pride lead you? Does exhaustion lead you? Does rejection lead you? Does your past lead you? Does your appetite lead you? Does your anger lead you? Or does truth lead you? Because a bad day does not remove your responsibility or the way in which you react to that. It reveals your current operating system, though. It shows you what you run to when you are tired. It shows you what you believe when you are disappointed. It'll show you how quickly your peace can be negotiated. It shows whether your discipline is rooted or conditional. It shows you whether your faith only works when the day is going your way. And that is not condemnation, that is revelation. And revelation is a gift when you are willing to respond to it. Understand this: the mantle of leadership is learning how to lead yourself when life does not cooperate. Anybody can mature or appear mature when the day is going easy, but maturity is revealed when the schedule breaks down, when your money is tight, when your children are acting up, when the boss is unfair to you, when your spouse is distant, when the opportunity falls through, when the body is tired, exhausted, when the emotions are loud and that's all you seem to be able to hear. That is where leadership becomes real. Not the public leadership, but the self-leadership. The kind nobody claps for. The kind that says, I will not let this bad day turn me into someone I am trying to outgrow. I will not let this frustration make me reckless. I will not let this disappointment make me bitter. I will not let this exhaustion make me cruel. I will not let this moment become my master. That is how you take back authority from a bad day. Not by pretending it doesn't hurt, but refusing to let hurt hold the steering wheel. So let me close with this. Bad days are going to come. Let me repeat it again for the people in the back. Bad days are going to come. Some will come from life, some will come from people, some will come from pressure. Some will come from your own choices. Some will come from reasons you cannot immediately explain. But every bad day represents a choice. You can let it become a mood, you can let it become a mindset, you can let it become a mistake, or you can let it become a mirror. A mirror that shows you where you are tired, where you are triggered, where you are still healing, where you need better rhythms, where you need stronger boundaries. We all need that. Importantly, where you need more prayer, where you need rest, where you need to stop letting temporary storms make permanent decisions. The day may be bad, but you do not have to be led by it. You can pause, you can breathe, you can pray, you can tell the truth about it, you can choose wisdom, you can repair what needs repairing, you can reset before the spiral becomes destructive. A bad day does not have to become a bad life. But somebody has to take leadership before the day does. Let that somebody be you. Hey, ladies and gents, this has been another amazing episode of Grind Hard, Hustle Smart with me, Charles Johnson. And remember this, do not let a bad day lead you into becoming somebody God is trying to heal you from. Lead yourself first. Tell the truth, reset, and then keep going. If this episode spoke to you, share it with somebody who has been carrying more than they have been saying out loud, vocally and physically. Hey, guys, until next time, stay grounded, stay honest, stay submitted to the truth and to God. Salute.